The world doesn't think that the gospel can change your life, but we know that it can. And that's why we want you to hear these stories of transformation, stories of freedom, people getting free from sin and healed from sin because of Jesus. This is Death to Life.
So I was allowed to have Snapchat at 13, sending pictures of myself that nobody needs to see other than my husband. And that was something that I was doing at like 12 and 13 years old.
Yo, this is the Death to Life podcast. My name is Richard Young, and today's episode is with my sister, Bree. And if you heard Josh's episode last week, this is a follow-up to that. Wild stuff going on in Ohio and in the gospel. This story is not for young ears. There is some stuff in it revolving around sexual morality and the like. But also, if you don't like the gospel, stop now. Just stop. Go do something else with your time. If you don't like radically transformed lives, then this is not for you. But it is for me. I love it. This is Bree. Let's jump into it. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Buckle up. Strap in. Well, let's start there with you. As you think about your story, as you think about the Bree story in how it relates to God, where do you think it starts?
Well, I was a pastor's kid. And no hate there or anything.
Love them, love the PKs.
Yeah. But I say I was always a fake Christian. So I was a pastor's kid. I was on the worship team. I was doing all the right things on the outside, but on the inside, I was so disgusting. I was selfish. I was hateful. I was fake. And
when do you think that fakeness started? Because as a little sweet Bree wasn't up here being, maybe kid selfishness because kids are self-centered. But when do you feel like something changed and you were like, I'm not sure what talk to me about that.
I never had a relationship with God, ever growing up. So I just knew of him. Do you know, I knew of him. I saw him as a father figure for everybody else. And I never knew him that way. Mm-hmm. So I was you can always, I always thought you go to church on Sunday, you do your thing, you feel the presence of God, and you go home and you try your best for the rest of the week to try and make it to Sunday and do it all over again. And so my whole thing was I never had a relationship. I just kept trying, and obviously by my own works of trying, you're going to fail every time.
Yeah.
So my life looked so different than what was on the inside, because I was so young growing up, obviously, but I was so young, and I never knew him, but it was always there. The relationship was never there.
Was Christian girl, was it a part of your identity? Where you went to school and where you was being a Christian a popular thing? Was it an unpopular thing? Did you consider yourself a part of we're Christian? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I definitely did. Christian was always a part of my life, but I didn't even know what it meant to be a Christian. I didn't know what it meant to have a relationship with God. I didn't know what it meant to be holy and righteous and pure through him. I just was so gross. It's gross.
What? You're I didn't know what it meant to be pure. I was just gross.
I was just so gross.
Like, are you talking about like?
I wanted, like, no, I was just gross. And like, there was nothing in me that was good because I was just holding on to my flesh so hard. Like, I knew all of these things about God and was in like children's ministry even and like telling these young kids, like, like God is there for you. And like, not even believing it myself. And, all these things. And it was always a part of my life, but I just never had that relationship. And it was just so, like, I never read my Bible. I never read my Bible, but I know all 66 books and I can tell them to you in order. And I can tell you what is the Old Testament. And I can tell you what's the New Testament. I can tell you what the Gospels are, but I never read it all the way through. And I didn't know anything other than John 3:16 and Jesus wept.
So it sounds a little bit like religion.
All these things. Yeah, 100%. That's what it was for my life. And that's all I knew. And
what was your main influence?
It did not work.
If it wasn't Christianity, what were the things that were influencing you to be a certain way? Like, let's say when you get to high school, you're a pastor's kid, grown up. By the time you get into high school, like, were you living in ways you didn't like before that? Or when high school comes around, it like you're getting a little older and kind of stuff starts to start a little rebellion?
I think I was rebellious by the time I was 12 years old. So before high school, I was always seeking attention from boys and needing that affirmation that I was pretty, that I was beautiful, that I was wanted, and that, whatever it was, I wanted it from them. And I think that started when I was about 12 years old, because I remember I was allowed to get Snapchat at 13. And Snapchat kind of ruined everything too.
Man, when Snapchat came out, I was like, this is gonna destroy lives. Like, even the whole premise of it is like, if it's you take it that it's gone, I'm like, no way. Like, this is gonna be terrible. And then I was a dean at a school, like a boarding academy, and I saw firsthand. I'm like, oh man, they're not ready for this. Even adults aren't ready for it.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, so I was allowed to have Snapchat at 13, sending pictures of myself that nobody needs to see other than my husband. And that was something that I was doing at like 12 and 13 years old. And
so this idea of God, and sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're good.
You've grown up with God. Now you don't really know him, you know about him. But the more powerful feeling is the feeling to be seen, the feeling to be known, the feeling to be known as beautiful. When you're sending these pictures to whoever, was there like God at all a part of this? Was there guilt, or was it just like this? Was it like compartmentalized, like God's over here and what I do on Sunday, and this is what I'm doing Friday night? Yeah,
it was like that. And I remember though, like times where I'd feel guilty, where I would, I'd be praying or something on Sunday morning on the way to church because I felt like I had to get it off my conscience before we were there. And I'd like be praying like, God, I'm so sorry I did that. Like, I'm just so horrible and I'll never do it again. And please just forgive me. And I remember those prayers and I just remember doing it again. So there was no, what's the word? There was no change in me.
Do you feel like you really didn't want to do those things, or do you feel like you really did?
I definitely wanted to. because I feel like if I hadn't have wanted to, I probably wouldn't have done it. I don't know, but
That's a weird one, right? Because you're
it is
feeling
weird
guilty.
because like, yeah, because you're feeling guilty in the moment, and then like the next moment, I'm like, well, I can give into it this time too, like whatever. That's kind of my mindset was. My mindset was always whatever. Like, I just always had a really bad attitude. I remember always just being like not necessarily a bad child, but like I was very talk back-ish. I was never, when I, like, if you probably were to ask my mom or dad, like, out of all of our siblings who would talk back, it would probably be me. Like, I was never afraid of, like, you know, saying what I felt like I needed to say in the moment. And that always got me into trouble because I had a bad attitude but I had a bad outlook on life too, because all I saw was myself and like how bad I was. And then I felt bad for myself. So I fell into self-pity, which was something that like was very familiar for me at a very young age, and just always feeling bad for myself. So I feel like that's why it kind of snowballed into, well, I'm already down here, like, might as well do whatever. And whatever was my favorite excuse, like, whatever. Well, it's going to happen. It's going to happen because I'm a sinner.
How did God feel about you in your mind?
God wasn't in my mind like that.
You weren't considering what he thought about you?
Nope. Never. I was never like, wonder what he looks at me like as. Never. Because I didn't care. There was nothing on my mind that changed because I was so selfish. I just wanted what I wanted, and what I wanted was more important than anything else.
And you wanted to be seen as, did you want to be seen as beautiful, or did you want to be loved by someone in your mind? What did you think was more important?
Probably, I would say loved, because that's what I definitely wanted. And I wanted to be loved 100%. And I didn't know that I could find love through him and in him.
Yeah. So early on, you're doing this stuff on Snapchat. When you get to high school, you were like, would you say you were boy crazy, or were you just after one specific, like how would you describe first couple years of high school in regards to like what you were going after?
I would say boy crazy. Yeah, I would. I wasn't necessarily, I stopped doing the picture thing-ish with like, by the time I was probably 14, so it's like what, a year and a half. And then there was a boy in my life who was my friend. And then that got cut off. And then there was another boy in my life who just used me, pretty much. And vice versa. I just used him too. And then there was Josh in my life. And Josh is my husband. He was a very kind person.
So when he came around, were you interested in long-term type of things, or were you still in the, I'm going to use you, we're here for a good time, not a long time type of deal?
Yeah, both. I would say both, because I knew I was going to marry him, but because I knew I was going to marry him, I was like, let's do it. How did you
know? Like, just early on, you're like, he's the man?
I don't know.
He's a good-looking guy.
Something about him. It was weird. Something about him, man. I mean, I remember going, we were hanging out one night and he left my house. I just remember going on the couch and sitting next to my mom and crying to him and being like, "That's my husband." And she was like, "Oh, honey." I'm like 16 years old. I'm like, "That's my husband."
So I'm forgetting you were homeschooled as well.
Yes, I was.
So you and him met up through this homeschool thing. So I'm like thinking you're seeing him in the hallways at school.
No, not even. Because we weren't even in the same homeschool group.
Okay.
Like, there are different homeschool groups, and I was a part of the nerdy one, and he was a part of the less bougie homeschool group. So.
Oh, he was slumming it with his homeschool. Okay.
We were in completely different things. So we didn't even know each other through homeschool. We knew each other because I had a thing with one of his guy friends.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
Like, we were like, that was my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you know, when it didn't work out for him and I, Josh and I were like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" That kind of thing.
So
yeah, that's how
it seems like in a typical relationship, there's like this back and forth, or like who decides how far things are going to go physically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually led by the person who has gone the furthest before. It just seems like that's kind of how it works. And it's like,
yeah,
if you're like, God is a part of your life, somehow there's this trying to put on brakes, but then there's also like, if you're alone, those brakes kind of end up being a figment of your imagination. Describe like trying to navigate that world while call it, like, I think Josh was, Christian, you're a Christian, but you're like, who cares? Like, if you went a certain distance and one of you was like, nah, we shouldn't go this far. Or was it even like that? Was it just like no even discussion? Like, we'll see what happens. And if we go too far, then perhaps we'll talk about it and say, maybe we don't want to live like this, or like both of us are feeling guilty. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So the whole thing even started for Josh and I even taking things too far, was because I had taken things too far with the guy who had used me and I had used him.
Right.
So with that guy, we didn't have sex, but we took things too far in other ways. And I had that on my conscience. But I was with Josh. And so I was like, "Josh, like, I need to tell you something." And I told him. And he was obviously very hurt. And he was kind of in a mindset where it's like, well, when you did it with him, can you do it with me?
Did you like voice this, or was it just like you felt that?
It was kind of like that kind of thing. Like, I felt it. And I don't remember if he exactly said it, but maybe he said it after and was like expressing it to me. You know? But so that was kind of the vibe I was getting. It was like, oh, he wasn't like like I think he wants me to do it with him too. So we did. Why'd you look at that?
And that causes so much, I mean, that chemistry, that chemical, that rush, that causes just like a bond that should only be there when you're married, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
Would you say that made the relationship better, or did it just completely take over the relationship?
It completely took over the relationship. It was all I could think about, honestly, and probably vice versa. Like, if I had to speak on behalf of him, it was probably all he could think about too. And I'm not sure but he was thinking about it the way I was thinking about it. He was probably thinking about it in a guilty way. And I was probably thinking about it like, this is my life. I'm a sinner. This is what it's going to be like. I'm never going to dig myself out of this hole that I put myself in. And so that was kind of
So
like
was that
what
like,
it
is
looked
that a
like.
good thing or a bad thing?
Kind of made me feel better about it, because it was like, well, this is what people do, you know? And I've seen it work out for other people. I saw it work out for my parents. I saw it work out for who else's parents. And, you know, they're in a great marriage. They have 30 years. They have all these things. And, you know, why can't I have that too? And still have like the earthly, worldly pleasures. And it wasn't enough for Josh and I in the beginning. We didn't take things too far in the beginning, but it obviously escalated, and we started having sex when we were dating. And that made everything just so much worse. Then I only saw him as someone who would like give me that pleasure or feeling, and then that feeling was love, is what I was perceiving. So, you know, and it's a horrible outlook on love, because that's not what it is at all. And but it was what I saw, and it was what was given to me, and it was all I have ever known with all sorts of guys before Josh, even. Like, you know, that feeling of I see you, I want you, you're beautiful. That was what I felt was love. And I only found it from boys or guys and whatnot. And so yeah.
Does feeling guilty, is that the worst feeling in the world to you?
Yes, it was.
Because like I'm imagining that because, and you tell me if I'm wrong, because you hate the feeling of feeling guilty so much, where some people will go deep into the guilt, like you're talking about Josh. So like that's something that I would do, like beat ourselves up, go deep into the guilt. Because you hate that feeling so much, you went the opposite way, and you're like,
yeah,
like I don't want to feel that at all. So this is how I'll work it out in my mind, so I don't have to feel like that.
Yeah, so I could enable myself to do it even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I didn't like it at all. I don't like feeling guilty. I always have to defend myself. That was something, you know, if somebody's accusing me of something, defend, defend, defend. You know, that kind of thing where it's like the wall. So I did not like it at all. And so I just pushed it away. I pushed it so far down. And that caused a lot of problems. And, you know, because now I'm looking at other people, and it just, everything was bad. Everything was bad. That was a whole mess.
So what was the plan to get out of this mess for you?
Get married.
That's the plan. That'll fix everything. I saw this cartoon the other day, or this comic strip, and I thought it was hilarious. And it was this couple, and they're dancing on their wedding day, and they said, it says, "Well, I guess we've solved all of our relationship problems now." Like the marriage, the wedding, getting married is this thing that's supposed to solve these other problems.
Oh my gosh, what a lie. Shoo, because let me tell you.
By this time, did you know about Josh and like his porn stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know it to the extent that I think he had told me. So I remember one night, this is crazy. We had just gotten done doing whatever we were doing, and he like comes and talks to me. He goes, "Sweetheart, I'm watching porn," and I slapped him. Like, what? I deserve to be slapped too. Like, what did we just get done doing?
Well, because it was an offense against you.
Yeah.
Not like God
I felt
or
all
like
high and mighty. Yeah, and I felt all high and mighty, like, what? Yeah. And that, like, it hurt, obviously. I slapped him. But I don't think it bothered me in like a way that you would think, because I was like, well, you know, he's a sinner too.
Mhm.
So I was like, so of course he's gonna do that. Porn was never a problem for me though. I can
Right.
clear consciously say I've never
It's not interesting.
ever been interested in that. It was only everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you. No porn.
Yeah.
So you can look down at him a little bit.
Yeah, literally. I think I did. I almost did. Yeah, oh, I 100% did. Because I was like, I don't do that. And why would you do that? You're looking at other girls. I'm supposed to be the only girl for you. And, all these things. And like, do you want those other girls or do you want me? Or like, what do you want? And he was like, well, obviously I want you. And I'm like, okay, well then treat me like it. Like, treat me like you want me. That kind of thing. I don't know. That was all I meant.
Do better, bro.
Yeah, do better. Don't look at that. And then come to find out, I did not know this until probably we were married, because I probably brought it up. And I was like, oh, like, how did that all go? And he was like, oh, yeah, that same night I went home and watched it.
Oh, mercy. Because that's the thing. Like, if you're addicted to porn,
Yeah.
having sex actually fuels that addiction a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. He
So
was like, I didn't stop. And I was like, what? That's crazy. I was like, I didn't think that you were gonna say that.
And this is why that I hate to burst somebody's bubble here, but I'm gonna burst somebody's bubble.
Yeah.
If you think the reason you're looking at porn is because your spouse won't have sex with you, no, like you've gotten into addictive pattern. And unless you receive like some truth and you're able to just walk away from that, then sexual activity will fuel that mindset even more. And so that's why getting married is not the answer to sexual immorality. Getting married is not the answer to porn addiction. Getting married is not the answer to fighting in your relationship. It will probably just put a magnifying glass on those things.
Oh, it 100% did.
But before we get to getting married,
we'll get there. Yeah.
I know a little bit of the story. Your brother and your sister-in-law start getting pumped up on gospel. Talk to me about when that was going on, because I think I did the interview with Josh last week. Kind of heard what happened to him. How did you experience that? Talk to me about that.
So my brother Braden and my sister-in-law Savannah, they were receiving truth and finding truth and hearing the gospel from Dan Mohler, I believe, is the person they were hearing it from. They were like watching his YouTube videos and all that stuff. And I believe this was around 2019. Maybe nope, that's so wrong. That was probably 2021, maybe 2020, somewhere around there. And they were having Bible studies at their house. And I was going to them. And then Braden had received this truth. And what he did was he created an analogy called the cups.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of them.
Oh, I've heard it. I love it.
So he has 2 cups. One's dirty, one's clean, the whole ordeal. And And he presents Josh with the cups analogy and, gives him the whole spiel, and Josh was changed. And, obviously it kind of sat with him for a little bit, but he was changed. And the cups presentation were given to us separately. So like it wasn't like in a group setting and Braden was talking. It was, we went outside on his back porch and, we're out there talking, it's like freezing outside and, but he has to get it out. He has to let us know. So, we're sitting out there and now it's my turn to get them. And he's, explaining everything to me, but he's using bigger words that I've never heard of, like righteous and holy and pure. And, yeah, he was using these words and I was like, okay, like that can work for you, but it's not going to work for me. Like, yeah,
Did
can
you want to
that
be
for
pure?
yourself. No, I was so comfortable in what I had created in my own heart, which was pushing away the guilt. So I never felt it. It was the shame almost. Like I can't talk about it. I can't tell Braden about what's going on in Josh and I's relationship. That we're sleeping together, that there are these things happening in our lives, and I can't tell him because I'm ashamed. And it was something that I didn't want to let go because it was so familiar. And I didn't know what my life was going to look like if I were to let go. So I had that. Then I had that like, well, what's going to happen if I do sin? Like those kind of questions. And so I didn't want to let go of it. And that brought a lot of destruction to Josh and I's relationship. And yet we still got married. But
what was the destruction? How did that work?
Well, the destruction was that, we had been sleeping together. We got the cups. He understood the cups. I did not. And so because of that, he no longer wanted to have sex. He no longer wanted to make out with me. So these things were taken away because he knew that they weren't supposed to be there. And because of that, and because I've only ever known that as love, I felt unloved then by Josh. And so then I really didn't want anything to do with God because I was like, what the heck? Come on. What's going on? Like, why doesn't he want me? But it didn't matter. I still stayed with him because I was like, we're going to get married. We've already had sex. Like, I'm supposed to stay with him. We've already done it. So he is my husband. So it didn't matter. Whatever. So he understood it. I didn't. Our relationship went on. No making out, no more sex. So I literally thought he didn't love me. I remember asking him like on the couch, like, do you even love me? And he was like, actually, I'm so much more in love with you than I have ever been. And I'm like, well, how can you say that when you don't do these things for me? So like, that's so manipulative. That's so wild. I'm like, I can't believe I've said those things to him. But that was my life and that's what it looked like. And that's what I was used to and familiar to. So it was what I like needed in a way. And when it wasn't there, I felt very upset with myself then because I was like, well, what was the point of us even having sex in the first place if now we're not even going to do it? Like, what was the point? So then I was feeling shameful and a little bit of guilt. I was starting to feel the guilt. And Life
Yeah,
went
if you
on.
stop doing something, that means that you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. And if you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place, then that allows for all of the guilt to set in. And that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was so uncomfortable. Yeah, it was. Um, yeah, and it wasn't even all the guilt that I truly felt. It was just a little bit, and I was like, wow, like I'm really so disgusting. That's what I felt. Um, but it didn't matter. Josh proposed to me, and I said yes. And we got married 3 months later. So he proposed on March 5th, 2022, and we got married June 3rd, 2022. So that was 90
How
Day
did you guys
Fiance.
plan a wedding in like 3 months? Like, that's wild. I guess it's like
89
pandemic.
days.
Like, was it easier during the pandemic?
No, because all venues were like gone. Venues were gone. But actually, God works in mysterious ways. But yeah, so, actually I had a dream because I know this amazing woman, and she actually opened a wedding venue, or she opened it, or I knew she had it, or I knew she had one coming. And I had a dream about her and that she was upset with me because I didn't ask her to use her venue.
Mm-hmm.
So, the next day I'm telling my mom this, and she's like, I'm calling her right now. Like, oh, don't even worry, sweetheart. Like, I'm going to get it, like, taken care of. And I was like, okay, whatever. I was like, see if she has the date available, because this is a beautiful venue. They're just opening up for the summer. All of their dates are probably gone.
Mm-hmm.
No, she had June 3rd available. So then, we walked the venue. It was perfect. I was like, yes, this is the one. Yeah. So that's how that worked out. And that was done within like 2 weeks. So that's crazy. But I mean, it was a pretty simple wedding.
How did, like, going from one day you're not married to the next day you're married, did you think it was going to be something in your mind? Like, what was your expectations and what was reality?
I was ready for no feeling of shame. I was like, that's what's going to happen. Like, I'm not going to feel shameful anymore for like what we've done, because we're married now. So it's like, it's all okay. Because we got married in the end.
Yeah, that's the truth. Like, once you get married, if you've experienced any kind of sexual immorality, it's not immorality anymore. It was totally cool.
It actually just all goes away, like the night of your wedding.
You know
like
what?
The moment you say I do.
In some ways, as I think about this, in some ways in Christ, that is true.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But if we do not know that and we're walking into, like, in reality, once you become man and wife, whatever was before, it should be gone. But we don't think like that,
Yeah. Yeah. And I wasn't. But Josh was. Josh was. I'll give him that. He was absolutely. He was free. He understood the gospel so well. And I love him so much because he always wanted to talk to me about it. Even when we were dating, like, he wanted to talk to me about it. And I was always the one to like shut it down. Like, don't talk to me. Like,
what was the fear of you understanding it?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
What was it going to take from
fear of just guilt and shame? But like, I don't know, because it was so familiar to me. I didn't know what my life was going to look like without it. So the guilt and shame and the self-pity and the enablement of wanting to do what I want to do, and the selfishness, like, I didn't want to let it go because I was so familiar to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just didn't know what my life was going to look like. And because of that, I just held on to it. But I had definitely seen a difference in Josh. And I was like, yeah, good for him. But like, you know, I'm still the same. I'm still the same.
So how did it go?
Brat.
How was marriage then?
Well, so Josh had understood the gospel, probably I want to say like 7 months before we were married. And while we were dating, it was a little bit easier to like push aside when he wanted to talk to me about it and stuff like that. And even though I had seen like differences in his life, like they were still like I was still able to like kind of push it aside almost because we were dating, like he goes home to his home, sleeps in his bed, and, I stay at my house and I sleep in my bed. We're separate. Like we're only spending like 6, maybe 7 hours together. Difference in marriage was we were together 24/7,
Mm-hmm.
sleeping in the same bed, all the same things. What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. Everything like that. And yeah, so he understood the gospel so well. And because of this, I felt so bad for myself.
Mm.
I was like, why can't I have it? Now I kind of want it in a way. Like what? Why can't I have that? Like, why can't we would be in fights or something and he would like just forgive me in a second or something, like, because like I don't know, maybe I lied or something, or I was always lying. I lied about something, or I had a bad attitude about something, like, and he would just move on and just tell me like, oh, I love you, sweetheart, like it's okay, like, it's gonna be okay, fine. And I'm like, why are you so okay with this? Like, why are you not like upset with me? Why are you not doing? Why are you not? What's the word? Upset with me the way I need to be deserved. Like I deserve to be like mad at almost.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't mad at me ever. And because of that, then I was like, ugh, like I'm just the worst person in the world. Like he can forgive me, but I hold on to grudges from people who've done me wrong like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I look at him and he forgives me in an instant. Like I just felt really bad about myself. And it was horrible. I was very hateful and I was very fake. And around this time as well, like my parents were still they were still pastoring, and I would still attend, but like my life looked so different. In my life, I mean like my inside,
Mm-hmm.
my heart looked so different than what I was saying to be true. And so then I had that like guilt of like, oh, like I can't believe I tell these people like God loves you, and I just don't believe it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I fell into a lot of self-pity, and that kind of snowballed once again. And about do you want me to go into it?
Sure.
Okay. So what is it? We got married in June. In around the end of December, because I was feeling so bad for myself, and because I just had all this guilt and shame piled up on the inside. I had an affair with a man, and after that, just everything was horrible. Everything.
Affairs just don't come out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
It's not like one day there's one.
Yeah.
It's it's built up. Was
Yeah.
there resentment being built up for Josh because of this thing?
I think so. Yeah. There was resentment in my heart against everyone. And especially Josh, because, like, he's the one who's closest to me. And it's actually crazy. So literally last night, I had a realization, because my brother and my sister-in-law are doing a little Bible study group, and we're getting together on Tuesdays. And they were talking about confessing your sins and, having a clear conscience and all that. And I was driving home last night, and I was like, just thanking God for everything. And I was like, just kind of reflecting back on everything that my brother had spoke about. And I was like, what he said was really cool. Like, and I've heard it before, like 3 times before, but like, I don't know why. I was just thinking about it last night. And it was like, well, like, when we're confessing our sins to one another, we don't share or partake in the other person's sins. Like, when they're confessing, you don't go, well, they're okay to do it, so maybe I can go do it too.
Right.
That kind of thing. Like, don't partake in it. And I was looking back, and I was like, I wonder if I've ever done that, like, unknowingly.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So, November 2022, Savannah had a girls' trip, and I believe your wife was there.
I don't think she was.
Was she not?
She wanted to go, but she wasn't able to.
It was a bunch of Love Reality girls.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm living in my own self-pity still, and, and all that shame and guilt was piled up in there. But, Jayla shared her testimony of Eddie.
Oh, wow.
I partook in Eddie's sin through testimony. I was hearing it, and I was like, well, I see it worked out for them.
Oh, mercy.
They're still together. And that happened in November, and by the end of December, I was having an affair with another man.
Would you say, and so, yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because that has been a thing.
It's wild.
We've learned that because people hear, like, a friend of mine had said, oh, I still look at porn while he was free.
Yeah.
And, like, freedom from sin is freedom from sin. And these testimonies are not to say, yeah, you can mess around with sin and you can end up like me. Like, nobody gets to sin and get away with it, as we're about to hear in your story. Like, no, like it's not just because you're walking in freedom now. We could have had a podcast and it still could be an amazing story.
Yeah.
But we don't need to experience so much heartache and pain. You don't have to go through any of that. And we would say, please don't.
Yeah.
But just because somebody has gotten, like, received this thing through something terrible, don't think that has to be your experience. Like, that you would have to
don't partake in it. Yeah, don't partake in it. And I just had that realization last night. And it's only God that I realized that last night, the day before we record this podcast.
That's crazy.
Were you, like, driving home? I was like, oh my gosh.
Were you like, I love Josh, like, I still love Josh? Or were you, like, thinking, I want to end my marriage with Josh? Yeah, like, at the beginning, like, when you make the first decision to be like, yeah, I'm gonna I'm going to participate in sexual immorality here? Were you like, I love Josh, or were you like, I'm done with this marriage like a few months into it?
I was never. You know what? I want to say that I still loved Josh, but by my actions, I clearly didn't. I don't know that I was necessarily thinking about Josh. I wasn't. I was thinking about myself. I didn't care. My attitude was, whatever. So I didn't care about him or anyone but myself and what I wanted. And what I wanted was more important to me than anything else. And I did what I wanted. And that just led to such a snowball of sin and resentment towards myself. And it definitely piled up, because I remember there were nights where, I would be in this man's bed and I would be sobbing because I'm like holding on to everything. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't keep doing this. And yet I still did.
How soon would you say you wanted out?
I don't think it hit me yet. I don't know. I think I probably would have wanted, I don't know. It didn't hit me yet because I didn't end things. Braden did.
So while you were participating in this whole thing, you didn't know how damaging it was to you while you were still sobbing and saying like,
yeah,
I can't do this. I imagine like there's just turmoil going on in your body.
Oh my gosh. I was probably the skinniest I've ever been because I wasn't eating. I was like, there were just things that like just were not, like everything was a distraction as well. Like I didn't want to be home with Josh. I was never home with Josh for 2.5 months. I was not home with him. I was anywhere but home. I was at work, working 17-hour shifts. I was at the gym. I was at a friend's house, his house.
Mm-hmm.
I was anywhere but home. And then when I would be home, Josh obviously wanted to hang out with me and like be with me. And because I knew what I was doing, did not want to be with him. So when I was home, it was not for very long. And it was not for, hey, babe, how are you doing today? Oh, I love you so much. There was none of that. I was very much closed off. And his patience through all of it is admirable, because I don't know how he did it. I do know how he did it, but in the moment, I did not know how he was doing it. I was never home. And that caused some ripple effects as well, towards how my brother Braden found out about everything. So,
so were you like angry at him, like short with him because of what was going on? And like, isn't that kind of weird? Because of a violated conscience, we treat other people like we believe. It gets weird, doesn't it?
It's crazy. Yeah. And then there would be times where I would be telling the truth, where like I was at the gym with my actual friend and he would be like, where are you? And I'd be like, sending him pictures. of like me actually at the gym. and then, and then he would get mad at me for that. And I'd be like, what is wrong with you? I'm actually at the gym.
And you might have believed it a little bit too, right? Like, how dare he not think while
Yeah,
you're
how
participating
dare
in this
he?
thing?
Oh yeah. I remember even like ranting to my friends and being like, oh my gosh, can you believe he's texting me like this right now? Wild.
Did anybody know what was going on except for you and this other person?
No.
Yeah.
No one knew. No one knew. And I think that also had taken a toll on me because no one knew. So I didn't have anybody telling me don't. And I had nobody telling me, like, I mean, I would hope I would never have anybody telling me, like, it's okay. But, like, you know, I never had anybody to talk about it with, literally, other than the man.
Mhm.
And he was no help either. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure he would have much to say.
yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, how long did this go on, and what was it like? You've been describing what it was doing to you. What
It went on from like end of January, or no, not end of January, the end of December to March 2nd. Yeah, March 2nd. My birthday's March 3rd. So the day before my 19th birthday.
So yeah, how did this all come to a head? What was it?
So, you know, I'm obviously not home with Josh at all. And, you know, my brother, Braden, is very good friends with Josh. Like, they are actually, like, they're very close. They talk every day about the gospel, about anything. They call each other. They just love each other. And I love that so much. I did not like it in this moment because of what happened. But you know, I mean, they're talking and whatnot, and I don't know. I think from what I can remember is that like maybe Braden had been like, oh, like, where's Bree at, kind of thing, and Josh was like, oh, she's always at her friend's house, and like Braden was kind of like, what? Well, that's weird. Like, what are you gonna do about that? Kind of like, you know, tell her not to go over tell her not to go over her friend's house. And then Josh is like, no, I mean, like, it's whatever. I guess it's just been like 2 months that this has been going on. And then Braden's like, what? And then Braden, I think also from what I can remember, is like he started praying for me. And one night, he called me out of the blue. It was like 11 o'clock at night. Or like, yeah, it was definitely like 11 o'clock at night. And I get a call from Braden, but I'm in this man's bed. And I freak out because if anybody were going to know about what's going on, it would be Braden. Because I know how strong he is in his faith. I've seen it. And I'm freaking out. I don't think I answered the call. Yeah, I definitely didn't. I didn't answer the call. But my location was on. And Braden had taken a screenshot of where my location was.
Oh,
and I remember I had went back home because I was freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, why is Bree calling me and whatnot. And remember I went home because I had to get out of here. I went home and I like got mad at Josh and was like, why are you telling Braden to call me? And he was like, I'm not telling Braden to call you. I was asleep. He was like, he must have been calling you on his own, whatever. And I was like, it's 11 o'clock at night. Why would Braden be calling me at 11 o'clock at night? Blah, 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 blah. And like getting mad at him. Like, what are you saying to him? Why are you talking to him like that? Like, I remember just getting mad at him. And I Like, and then just like Josh, like being like, whatever, babe, like whatever, like it's fine. Like, I don't know. Like there was just a whole argument. I don't even remember what happened. But then we went to sleep.
Mhm.
And then little background. My mom is a realtor. So this came into play with Brayden taking a screenshot of my location. And my mom looked up the address of the house
Oh no.
and like found like the records, I guess, of like who owns it.
Oh no.
The name was not matching up with the name that I was given Josh.
Right.
So Brayden shows up as, you know, older brothers do. Shows up to the guy's house and is like, you know, where's this guy? And like, you know, can't find him, whatnot. I don't know. Anyways, so I'm with my sister and my mom, and I'm thinking we're just going and hanging out. You know, it's the day before my birthday. My mom's taking me out.
Hmm.
And really it was a setup. Brooke, my sister, and my mom, and Brayden, my brother, they kind of like ambushed me, but like did it in a good way. Well, actually, my mom had no idea about any of this going on. But like Brooke and my brother Brayden ambushed me and was like, you know, just say it, just say it, just say it. Like, what's going on? Just say it.
Hmm.
And Brayden was like, no, like she needs to say it. We can't get anywhere past this if she doesn't say it.
Was he pretty intense at this time?
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
getting nervous right now. I'm just
Yeah.
listening. I'm like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I was scared. I was very much scared. I was shaking so hard.
were you just denying or
Oh yeah. Denying. I was like, what? What's going on? What? But like trying to stay calm in order to present that like nothing's going on. What are you talking about?
Mhm.
And then they say the guy's name, and my whole world is flipped upside down. And I completely shut down. I was just like tears were falling, but like my eyes were not blinking.
Hmm.
Like I was completely shut down. I remember I like literally felt like I was like frozen. And Brayden was just like, you just need to say it. And my mom had no idea what's going on. So she was like, what? Like, Bree, like, what's going on? And she asked me that. And I looked her straight in the eyes and I said, I'm having an affair with Josh. Like, well, no,
Oh,
I'm
no.
having an affair on Josh. And I said it. And Brandon goes, there we go. Now I can get past it. I said it. And my mom is shook. Like she's shook now to the core. My sister already knew, so she's like, why would you do that? Oh, yeah, she's clearly upset. And my brother Brayden was very calm, and he was like, all right, well, now we just got to go over to Josh's house and you need to say it to him. So then we drive all the way back to my house, and we get there.
Are you just
and
like
my brother?
like what was your game plan at this time? Or are you just like shock?
I was shocked about how it came about. Does that make sense? Like,
Was there any relief or was there still just anger?
there was only anger. Not anger towards anyone but myself.
Hmm.
I wasn't mad at Brayden. I wasn't mad at Brooke. I was only mad at myself.
Mhm.
And we drove up to, my house, and Brayden goes in first, and he goes and wakes up Josh. Josh is asleep by like 6 o'clock on a regular night.
Mhm.
He's an old man. So it was like 9 o'clock, but like he was already asleep. And he goes in and wakes him up and whatnot. And I guess he goes over to Josh and he's like, hey, Bree's been messing around on you. I'm gonna talk to her in the living room. And I'm sitting on the couch now, and she looks at me, and he's shaking. He has the shakes, and it's not like cold, he's not just cold. His whole body was shaking, and I was just sitting there, calm, but not the type of calm where it's like I had peace. No, it was like calm, like I was making myself be calm because I needed to make him feel like that I didn't care. Because at this point I wanted to be done, like with the marriage. So I'm sitting there and he is like, what's going on? Why haven't you been home? Why don't you talk to me? Why don't you say you love me anymore? And I looked at him and I was like, I'm having an affair. And he goes, with who? And I said, whatever. He goes, I knew it. He goes, I didn't want to know it. I kind of wanted to look past it, but I knew it. And I was like, of course you did. Like, oh, yeah, whatever. Of course you did. I haven't been home for 2 months. How could you not see it? You'd be dumb if you didn't. And then we had a very big dispute because I had told him what was going on, but within 5 minutes after me telling him this information that just rocked his world, he forgave me. And he was like, I forgive you. I love you. And that completely changed everything. Because now I'm looking at him and I had to look away because I no longer saw Josh sitting on the couch. It was only Jesus. And I was like, wow, like there's no other way that he would have been able to forgive me if he hadn't just been living a life to God. Like there's no other way he would have been able to express that forgiveness if he himself had not been able to receive forgiveness. And I was so mad. I was so mad. I was like, you're kidding. You don't forgive me. I deserve so much badness and hate, and like you should leave me. We're getting a divorce. If you don't leave me, I'm leaving you. This whole thing, and it escalates. I don't know if he shared this, but I ended up pepper spraying him.
You did share. You were at like this isn't like logical thinking or anything. You were like flooded emotionally.
Oh my gosh. Just everything came out so suddenly. And I was just like everything just came out. And yeah, like I was trying to get out of there. Like leave. I don't know where I would have gone. Probably somewhere not good. But I mean, I was trying to leave and he was preventing me from leaving. Not in like any type of like bad way, but like obviously I was acting literally insane. And so like, he was like my keys, he took away my keys, but my keys had pepper spray. And I was like, I got my keys somehow. And I tried pepper I did. I pepper sprayed him right in the eyes. And and I'm thinking like, oh yeah, this is it. Like I'm gonna pepper spray him and I'm gonna be able to run for it.
And you're like gonna get to the car and right.
Did not work. In fact, what he had done was he wiped the pepper spray from his eyes and put his hand and wiped it across my eyes. So then I was unable to see, and I'm gagging, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this did not go as planned. Now it smells like mace.
So
Whole
you
big
seeing
thing.
you being forgiven by him was like is just repulsive to you.
Oh yeah. I was like, how dare you forgive me when I can't forgive myself?
Yeah.
Like it was just not comprehensive to me that he was able to do it, and so quickly too, might I add.
Mhm.
In 5 minutes, he said those words, I forgive you, and I love you, and we'll work through this, and we will get past this. And I was like, no, we won't. Like, you're crazy if you think this is gonna be okay. Yeah, it was a tough spot because I was very upset with myself.
Yeah.
And I let him know it, pretty much. I pepper sprayed it. It was really bad. But, yeah. So that had happened. Then, because I pepper sprayed him, he had called my mom and my dad, and they came over to my house, and they calmed everything down or whatever, and they were like sitting on the couch, and then Braden gets there, and then my brother-in-law Elijah gets there, and they're all sitting around me, and they're all trying to speak truth into me, and I'm not receiving it because I'm choosing not to receive it. And because I'm choosing not to receive it is because I felt like I couldn't receive it because of everything that I've done. I had sex before marriage. I've given away my gift of marriage, and all these other things that I've done in the past, and just I couldn't let it go because I felt too familiar with it almost. And so that happened the night of like March 2nd, so my birthday eve. We go to sleep or whatever, and Josh sleeps on the couch, I get the bed, and he wakes me up on my birthday and is like, you're going over to your sister's because you need a babysitter. He says that to me, and I was like, whatever. And so go over to my sister's house, and she's just being very sweet and kind and patient. And she's talking with me like nothing happened. And we go into my nephew's like little nursery, and we're sitting in there, and then my best friend Bree shows up. Her name is Bree. She shows up with like a Starbucks in hand and is like, happy birthday. And I was like so like distraught because I was like, oh my gosh, everybody knows. And they all found out through the grapevine, pretty much. And she comes over, and we're sitting, and my sister is like talking with me, and Bree's talking with me, and Bree goes, I forgive you, even though you didn't do anything to me. I forgive you. And I was like, yeah. And then Brooke said she forgave me, even though I didn't do anything to her either, but she forgives me. And that she doesn't look at me any differently. And neither does Bree. Like, she didn't look at me any differently. And that kind of rocked my world, because I was like, wow, these two very important people in my life have forgiven me for something absolutely disgusting. And Josh forgave me last night for doing something absolutely disgusting to him. And I broke down. And I'm just like sobbing. And my sister and Bree start praying. And I give my life back to Jesus. In that moment of, like, realization that I don't want things of the world. I don't want it. In fact, I realize the only way I'm going to be able to move on is if I am able to trust God. And I did it. And I reconciled with Josh. And I called him. I was like, I love you. I was like, and I'm so sorry for what I've done to you. And he goes, oh, that's okay. I love you. And he's like happy on the phone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how does he have such joy right now? Wild. And that's what I did. I gave my life back, and I was like, I'm gonna be different. And I realized, like, these things of, I don't want the things of this world. I want what God has in store for me. And I got up and we left. And the first week of being home with Josh after everything was kind of tough. Not for any other reason than me not being, what's the word? I was having struggles with, old familiar ways of thinking. I believed that Jesus was for me and I was for him. Yes, I believed that on my birthday. But that first week, I was struggling almost to put away with the old familiar thoughts and, like, mindset, basically. And because of that, I was feeling like I needed closure from the man. Because, I don't know, just old familiar ways of thinking. Like, I was like, I just
deception.
Yeah, lies. And because of this, like, it was causing a problem for Josh and I, because it was all I could think about is that I needed closure. I don't even know closure from what. I couldn't tell you. I just felt like I needed closure. And so because of this, we were talking one night. It was like a Saturday night or whatever. And we were talking, and I was like, I need closure and you need to let me have it, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to move on, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, you can move on. Like, you just need to let yourself move on. She was like, you can find all of your closure in Jesus if you just let it happen. And I'm like, sitting there, and I'm like, you don't understand. Like, that bond, I was like, you don't understand, Josh. And then she was like, no, like, I think I do understand, because if anyone were to need closure right now, it'd be me, with you feeling like you need closure from another man. Yes. I was like, if anyone needs closure right now, it's me. He goes, but I can find it through Jesus and not from you. So I was like, whatever. I took off my ring, made a big old dramatic, took off my ring, and I hopped in the car. He let me leave. And I went to a Target parking lot. And I was sitting there literally scrolling through TikTok, and my phone is blowing up. Like, every single family member that I have was texting me. My little brother even was texting me. And I'm like seeing all these messages go through and like all these calls go through, and I just turn off my phone. Because I'm like, whatever, how are they gonna, whatever. So I turned off my phone, and then I turn it back on, and it's like text messages from Josh saying like, I love you. Please come back home to me. We'll work through this. These things, like these really nice things is like he was saying. And then I get a call from him, and I answer. And then he was like, I'm at your work right now, and I need to know where you are. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what? Like, I'm in a Target parking lot. Like, what are you guys doing? Whatever. That whole thing happened. And then they come to the Target parking lot where I was. And it was very dramatic. My sister was very upset with me. My sister was there. Bree was there. Josh was there. Braden pulled up, and my dad pulled up. Very dramatic. But it was probably needed for the case. I don't know. I was acting crazy. But yeah, so they all got there. They're all talking to me and whatnot, and they're like, "Will you just come home?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay. Obviously I'm gonna come home." And Braden or somebody said like, oh, like she'll ride with Brooke. And I like looked at Braden and I shook my head no. I was like, no, don't let me drive home with Brooke. Don't let me drive home with Brooke. And Braden goes, nah, I'll take her home. I was like, yes.
Because Brooke means business.
Brooke was very upset with me. She, I believe if I'm remembering correctly, she punched me in the gut. I did not want to be near her at the moment. So I was like, don't let me ride with Brooke. So Braden was like, no, I'll take her home. Whatever. I hop in Braden's car. We're talking, or no, he's talking to me, basically. He's talking to me, and he's just speaking truth into my life.
Like, what kind of stuff is
and he's like, it's literally same things that like Josh says is like, you are not the person you're acting like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just because you're acting a sort of way or you're feeling a certain way doesn't mean that's who you are, and you don't need to live it.
Mm-hmm.
And I am sitting there and I'm like, well, how do I not live it? Like, how do I just like not? Because like, what if the thought comes and whatever? And Braden's like, that doesn't matter because you aren't that person.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not an adulterer, and you're not these things. Who you are is you're pure, righteous, and holy, and a child of God. And I was like, huh. I was like, okay. And then he shares with me, let me find it. We're in his car still, and he shares with me Romans 7:15. I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. But if I know that what I'm doing is wrong, this shows that I agree that the law is good, so I'm not the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. And that's 17. That's Romans 5:17 through 17. 15 through 17. Oh my gosh. Can't read. And he shares that with me, and I was like, yeah, that's me. I was like, I do what I don't want to do. And he was like, yeah. She was like, but that's not who you are. He was like, that's just your sinful nature. That's what you were born into. And I was like, oh, you mean I don't have to do what is wrong every time? And he was like, no. And so then we're at my house, and he's talking to me more about Romans 5. Or that's Romans 6.
7.
Oh, that's Romans 7. What am I talking about? Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. That is so funny.
No, he's describing that.
I was looking it up here.
You're good.
I was looking at it.
No, but this is this
like
this
you're like, great.
where Paul's describing what the law does to someone who is not in Christ, right?
Yeah. 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 And wow. It hit different after hearing it from Braden and him having some one-on-one time with me in my house, and we were just talking about it. And it came to a point where I understood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these words were making sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in my bedroom, and Josh is in the front room, and Braden's like, you need to confess what you've done and confess it to Josh. And just, he was like, but once you confess it, it's not in you. It's not in you anymore. It doesn't define you. He said, you don't let it define you. And I was like, okay. He was like, do you want to confess? And I was like, yeah, I don't want to live like this. And so then he brings Josh in the room, and we're sitting there, and I just confess everything. Like, anything that I can think of that, like, during our marriage time that I've done wrong to him, I'm just confessing it. Mm-hmm. like, just confessed it. And because it was on my mind, it was a conscience thing. Anything that was bothering me, that I know that I did was wrong in the moment, I just confessed it. And after that, Josh and I reconciled again. But the difference, I think, from the week that from my birthday to whatever that following Saturday was, that week, yes, I believed I was going to change, but that mindset was still there. Mm-hmm. But then that Saturday night, when Braden was explaining things to me, my mindset completely changed. My mindset completely changed. And from that point, from March to November, I believed, yes, I am free from sin. Sin does not define who I am. It is not something that I do. And all these things. And I'm living in the truth from March to November. Everything I believe in the Bible that says it's true about me, I believe it's true about me. 100%. Then I meet you, Rich.
Okay, we're going to take a really quick break from the episode, and I'm going to bring on a friend of mine that lives on the other side of the world. It's my friend Ruth. Ruth, what's up?
Hi.
How you doing?
Just realizing that whenever I say hello to people, I instantly start giggling. So I feel like that's a good That's a good indication.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, Ruth, quick question. How long have you been rocking with the gospel?
The gospel as I now know it, just over 2 years, nearly 2.5 years. Yeah.
2.5 years?
2.5 years. Yeah.
So what has the gospel done in like changing your life?
Oh, goodness. I think the biggest thing has always been that I lived from some kind of lack mindset that made me innately identify as a victim to circumstances, victim to people's perceptions of me. And at the same time, I just would deep dive into people pleasing to elevate their perceptions, even if just for a moment. And I just went on to struggle with anxiety, depression, bitterness towards people, resentment. It was just a whole mess. But then God did something.
So it's different now.
Yeah, it's different. And it's not just because I say so, it's because He says so. And I've just decided to believe Him.
So let me ask you this. You have donated time, energy, money to get this message out there. Why is that important to you?
I think because there are far too many people within the church and also outside of it that don't understand how profoundly simple it is and how final God's word is over their life. And, God's obviously He's a storyteller Himself. So what's better than a testimony to kind of help us realize that He wants to do something better in our lives.
Yeah, and if you would like to join with us, go to lovereality.org/give, and every dollar you donate goes to keep this story getting out there, the story that Jesus has in fact brought you from death to life. So join with us, lovereality.org/give, and let's get the story out there, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound good, Ruth?
I feel like that sounds all right, yeah.
All right, let's get back to the episode. Let me give you a little backstory. So the week that this is going on, Braden and I are on the phone and we're talking about stuff, and we're praying about it for sure. And there's stuff that he was like, there was lies creeping in, and we're praying about those things. And when he said sister, I thought you were going to be like a 30-year-old person. I didn't know you were like a 19-year-old. He never told me your age. He's just like, yo, my sister is tweaking out, bro. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And so I thought this was like
Freaking out. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm like, what's going on? And then we really kind of stopped talking about it. Like Braden and I don't talk super often, but so I get to this thing, and he's introducing me, and I think I met Brooke first, and right when I walk in there, I'm like, I wonder, because I had no idea. I'm like, I wonder who his sister is that was struggling those months
Who was
back.
tweaking?
Who was tweaking out? And so I meet Brooke, and I'm like, no, it can't be Brooke, because she wasn't, the girl in the story wasn't pregnant, and Brooke is pregnant, so it can't be Brooke. And so then I meet you, but Braden's not there to be like, it's her, she was the one that was tweaking out. And so I start preaching, and you're just on my heart the whole time I'm preaching, and I'm not good at eye contact when I'm preaching. But I was looking at you. I don't know if you felt that, like a large percentage of the time that I would look out there.
Yeah.
And you were sitting in the front row, and you had like a red, like Ohio State sweater on. And so I'm like, I hope I'm not weirding her out, but I desperately want her to receive this message, because I didn't know where you were with it. And that night, were you like completely solid in it? Like, were you like all the way in? Yeah. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, is I don't like, in my mind, I'm like, Jesus, take the wheel.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, no, I was completely solid. I knew who I was, and I knew I was free from sin. Completely solid. My life looked absolutely different. Josh and I's marriage looked absolutely different from March to November. The thing was, that night you came to me and you sat down, and I had a friend there, and you sat down and you were like, so how's everything, going with you? That question you guys always ask to get the person talking. Like, how's everything sitting with you? And I was like, yeah, no, it's super good.
And then I was like, maybe this isn't her. I was like, oh, it must be another sister who's not here.
No, it was me. No, and I was like, yeah, no, it's super good. Like, it was awesome. Thank you for sharing your story, whatever, yeah, that kind of thing. And you're like, I was like, your story reminds me, I think, did I say it reminds me a lot about my story? And
no, you just gave me the signal that you couldn't talk. You're like, I can't talk right now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you were like...
Because I didn't want to be pushy either. Like, I'm not there to go where I'm not invited. If you would have been like, cool, thanks for your story, I would have just backed completely off. But since you gave me like a signal, like, I can't talk right now, but maybe I can talk, I'm like, oh, maybe she's the one.
Yeah. No, so my friend was standing right there, and I didn't want her to perceive things the wrong way. Almost. Like, I didn't want to share it with her because work. I knew her.
Because at this point, there's only a few people who know about it, right?
Few people who know, and few people who know through the grapevine.
Right.
Okay. Not people that I've gone out of my way to share.
Right.
With. Okay. But because of this, I didn't want things to be perceived wrong from her point. And I also didn't want her to fall into that temptation of gossip.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if she heard mine and then take it to work. And I didn't want to give it the whatever
power there.
Yeah, I didn't want to give it the power. I know that people, because of their own way of like gossip and stuff, it spreads fast, rumors.
Sure.
And so I just didn't want to, honestly, I didn't want to give other people the opportunity to gossip about me, because then that would me giving them like a temptation to sin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'll just keep it to myself until I know it's right to share.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard you talk and everything, I was like, that's who I'm sharing it with. That's who I'm sharing it with. I was like, that's it. I was like, that's the one. So then the next day, we're at my brother and Savannah's house. And you and Josh started talking about sports, the Chiefs and the Bengals. Would you believe it? You guys started talking about sports. And then, would you believe it? We got to start talking about my testimony.
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea how Josh was. And I think we were doing that surface level sports stuff first. And then I think you came over and sat down. And
I was like, let's just sit down.
Yeah. And I was going to try one more time. And you tell me this story, and I didn't know how it ended. Like, I didn't know if you were like telling me to be like, and I'm still trash. I'm still this old person. And you're telling me the story, and there's tears flowing down your eyes. And there's a few times on, this podcast is, I don't know how many episodes it is now. It's quite a few. But there's been a few times where in the podcast, I'm listening and I'm like, how's it going to end? Like, is like this person going to tell me like that they still don't know? Like, why am I interviewing them on the podcast? Like, if they're going to tell me that they don't know the truth, like, we're not going to be able to put this episode out.
Yeah.
And you're telling me and you're crying and there's tears flowing down your eyes. And I'm like, am I going to go in right now and just like break down like, no,
Yeah.
Bree, you are the righteousness
Yeah.
of God in Christ. And so I say
Yeah.
something to the effect of like, but do you get it now? And this huge smile just comes on your face and you're like, oh no, like I know it. Like I believe this now. And as tears are coming down your face, and Josh is over here crying and I'm trying to hold it together. And I was just like, oh, praise the Lord. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, yesterday, what I preached and what I'm going to preach tonight is like, it's just resonating with her and she's just receiving it
Yeah.
because she's already known it.
Yeah.
And so that was huge for me.
Yeah. 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 And what was huge for me was sharing it for the first time.
Mm.
So from that moment, I have been different.
Hmm.
I don't know how to explain it to you other than the fact that since I have shared it, there has been something radically changed through sharing it.
Yeah.
I have this undeniably huge urge to dig in my Bible. And I had that like mindset of, oh, I need to be in my Bible, you know, but there's something that is in me that I can't get out.
Hmm.
And it's the urge of, I want to know more. And I find that through reading my Bible. And I have been very open about my story. I shared with you, I think, on a Saturday. Yeah,
Mhm.
on a Saturday. Sunday, Monday night, Brayden and Santa have another Bible study group from the whole, your guys' whole thing that you're able to do. And I've shared with the group.
Mhm.
And this was my only second time sharing. And I shared with my fellow believers. And now everybody knows. And, and I'm just sharing. And I but like I know who I am.
Yeah.
And it felt beautiful for me because it was like I'm out of my shell.
You're being
this is who I
yourself.
am. Yeah, I'm being myself and I'm sharing who I am. And there's nothing more to it other than that person last year is not the same person who's sitting here talking to you today. And that has been something that has been resonating with me. And I'm like, wow, it's been a year. And I even sat down with Josh and was like, not many people can go through what we went through and still be okay a year later, but be better than ever. And our marriage is just the best thing in the world. Like, I love it and I love him, but I don't love him because I need him. And I don't want this marriage because I need it, because I need to feel like I'm secure. I want it and I love it because I have Christ in me and I am able to give it. So because I have received it, I am able to freely give. And I freely give my story to anyone who wants to hear it. I mean, I have been on a roll.
Yeah. So
and it's not going to stop.
that Saturday night, there had been somebody who was like talking about, why are we always preaching freedom from sin? Like, why do we always preach Romans 6? Why do we always do it?
Yeah.
And so after hearing your testimony, like if I only spoke twice that weekend, and usually I would go into something else, but I was like, no, I need to talk about why we preach this. And because that specific person was going to be in the audience. And then I was like, okay, so I started off my whole talk and I was like, this is why we do it. And while I was up there, I was like, oh, now I know how I'm going to end it. And I was going through different people in the audience, and I didn't say their names. I was just like, because my buddy Chris was there. I was like, Chris, I didn't say his name. I was like, a guy who was addicted to drugs. My brother-in-law, Elias, he was there. So I told like his story without saying his name. And then yours was the last story, yours and Josh. And I mentioned it, but I didn't look at you at all. Because if I would have seen you there and you would have been looking uncomfortable, I would have stopped. But I wanted you to see and hear how your testimony is powerful, right? I wanted you to see like this was for you. But like I said, I was too scared to look at you. And so then the next morning, Savannah is like, yo, she's different. Like she's been reconciling with friends. She's been this, that, this, that, this, that. And so it's just like the power of sharing what God has done in our lives. It's the thing. It's the thing that gets this out there. Like this is the purpose of the Death to Life podcast. It's not so you can hear, right? It's not like you can walk away and be like, Bree was crazy. What a crazy story. Like Bree, wow. It's for you to hear that, no, this is true about you as well.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that in you and I see how you've been living your life and that you have been sharing, man, what a powerful tool to get people to see it for themselves, right?
Yeah. It's crazy. I just can't stop. Like, and it's wild because I was talking with a friend a couple days ago and I was sharing with her my story. And well, she had apologized to me. She was like, I'm sorry, like, for the way that I found out about it. Just like out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere. She's like, I'm sorry for the way I found out about it. And I apologize for talking about you behind your back. And I said, that's okay. I love you. I forgive you. It's all good. And she was like, how are you so okay with that? And I just shared with her. I was like, well, Romans 6 and all these things. And I shared with her and I was like, like I'm not the same person I was a year ago. And she goes, no, like I see it. She was like, you're different. She was like, you're even talking differently. And I was like, that's just the power of the good news. It's just the power of the gospel. I was like, and it's in me. So there's no other way you're going to talk to me. I like you could say whatever you want, but it doesn't matter because I know who I am in Christ. And because of that, I get to live it and all these things. And she's just like, wow, like, why have I never heard about this before? And I'm like, well, you're hearing it now. So,
all right.
That's awesome.
Let me, I was going to bring Josh on, but I feel like this is good. Where am I going to take you back to? Where are we going to go? If you could go to Bree, who is so against feeling bad that she just pushes everything away, and she's in the middle of this relationship with her boyfriend, and it's giving her life, and now part of that's changed because he's living different, and she's feeling some sort of way about herself. If you could jump in the time machine and go back and take this girl out for coffee and just sit down with her, what would you tell her? What would you try to say to her?
You're not the things that you're giving into. You're not these things that you're letting control your life. Just because if you do it, doesn't mean that that's who you are. I think I struggled a lot with identity. And I think that the identity I was finding in other people. And like like I was always the influenced, not the influencer.
Mhm.
And, and now I believe I am an influencer to people because I want them to know the good news. And, honestly, I would pray with her and pray for her because there is no other way she was gonna get out if she didn't know her identity through Christ. And thankfully, now I do.
Wow.
Yeah.
This story is powerful. I think it's going to be a blessing to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, like, God is using you. God will use you. What is that going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Our lives have been changed. And if someone can hear, then we'll tell them the story. And so I believe that if it's on a one-on-one level, if it's through this podcast, that you're going to be a blessing to whoever God puts in your path. And you're growing in maturity. You're growing, like I am, you are.
Yeah.
Braden is, Josh is. We're not going to stop.
Yeah.
And so I think that's awesome. I don't think we need to feel pressure on us to do it. My pressure is that I explain it the best way that I can. I don't feel like a pressure that this podcast has to, something weird's got to happen with it or whatever. I just feel like with every story that we tell, that we need to tell the best way, and that we just pray that God uses it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so the same thing with you. Don't feel any pressure outside of just like, he's changed my life. And so it's my privilege to tell this story.
It is. And it's so exciting to share.
Amen.
I'm just so excited.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. My pleasure.
If you think you are the sum of everything you've done and that you're still the old person, this prayer is for you. Father, I know you say that if I'm in Christ, I'm a new creation. But there's something holding me back from believing that I'm forgiven. Thank you for revealing that to me as the lie that it is, so I can walk in the newness of life that you purchased for me and have given to me by Jesus. I'm going to put conviction around the idea that I'm a new creation, that the old has gone, and that the new has come in Christ Jesus. Thank you for giving this to me. And I'm praying this in Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah, love that story. You got to keep on meeting up with the saints. Meet up with us on Internet Church every other Friday night. That's where we like to get down, the after party. People be receiving the gospel. So see you at Internet Church. Bye.